This is a TV show, and the reason that it's being done in prime time is because there is a desperate attempt to keep people from thinking about the fact that inflation is killing their budgets, that they're paying twice for gasoline, that our borders are being overrun, groceries are up 20%. They're not going to send their kids to summer camp because they can't afford it, and maybe that vacation to go see grandma, they'll have to do it by Skype this year.
Joining us now from his Little Rock studio, TBN's Governor Mike Huckabee. Governor, good to see you.
Thank you, Doug. Great to be with you.
As we saw in that setup piece, it is illegal to intimidate a member of the federal judiciary. It is illegal. Why are these protests still allowed to happen outside of Justice Kavanaugh's home?
Well, the tragedy, Doug, is that we've now come to a place where we have two different and very distinct levels of justice in this country. If you're well connected and if you're left of center, you're going to be treated differently than if you are right of center, and particularly if, God forbid, you at any time ever supported Donald Trump. Great example. Look what's happened in that you've got people marching down the street in front of Brett Kavanaugh's home, an assassination attempt by a person armed with a gun, a knife, zip ties, a screwdriver, a hammer, with the intent to kill Justice Kavanaugh. Now, it's illegal to obviously to kill somebody, but it's illegal to intimidate that justice, as you just mentioned. Yet it's happening, and Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, is not prosecuting the people who are committing a federal crime. And even though he goes to the podium and says, oh, this is a serious thing to be going against these protests and marching in front of the homes of a justice, he can say that all he wants. He's not doing anything about it. Every one of the people who are doing that should be arrested, and they're not being arrested. But you know who is being arrested? Peter Navarro. He's on his way last week to do our show in Nashville, and they nab him at Reagan Airport as he's getting on the plane, handcuff him, take him to the jail, strip search him, put him in leg irons, and he lives next door to the FBI, and it told him 2 days before, both on the phone and in writing, if you need to talk to me, you know where I am, call me, get to my attorney, we'll come in and visit. They didn't do that. They frog marched him across the federal courthouse lawn, and that's the double standard of justice that we're seeing.
Right. And they made the arrest at Reagan National Airport, as you pointed out, a very, very public place where everybody knows it's going to happen. Everybody's going to see it happening before their very eyes. That was a show.
It was a complete show. And here's the interesting thing. Contrast that with Eric Holder, former Attorney General under President Obama, who was also charged with criminal contempt of Congress. Same thing Navarro was charged with. Big difference. 17 Democrats voted with Republicans to charge Eric Holder. Did he ever get in handcuffs? Did they go and find him in a public place and humiliate him? Did they take him and strip search him and put him in leg irons? Not on your life. In fact, you know what happened to him? Nothing. Not a thing. He didn't even go to the courthouse over it because the Department of Justice never pursued the charges. So when we see that kind of thing, Americans are looking at that and saying, what happened to the Constitution? What happened to Lady Justice, who was supposed to be blind as to whose issue it is that's being adjudicated? And now what we have is a very partisan and a very, frankly, evil and corrupt system of justice, and it destroys the country when that happens.
You know, adding to the trouble of this is that only half of Americans are truly aware of this, because the other half are getting their news from outlets like MSNBC, the CBS, ABC, NBC, the Washington Post, the New York Times, NPR, PBS, you name it, the gamut. They are not reporting this in the ways that they should be reporting it. And one example of that is that this partisan hearing we're going to be seeing televised tonight is being aired in its entirety, at least according to the latest reports I've seen, by ABC, CBS, and NBC, even though it is a strictly partisan hearing because the minority was deprived of being able to pick their own members. Your thoughts about that?
Well, the only two Republicans that will participate will be Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, two Trump-hating Republicans who were handpicked by Nancy Pelosi to be put on her short leash, and they're going to be paraded out there as representing the Republicans. Well, they don't represent Republicans. All they represent are Trump haters. There are plenty of those sitting around at MSNBC and CNN. They pretend, too, to be Republicans. I think it's very important that the American people understand that the way the committee was set up, the minority leader, Kevin McCarthy, was supposed to pick the Republicans who would serve on this committee. He picked some. Nancy Pelosi didn't like them. She rejected them. She picked her own. Now, when you pick the so-called opposition party and they're favorable to you, you really don't have what, by anybody's standards, could be a fair process and one that gives both sides. It would be like a prosecuting attorney in the courtroom getting to pick who the witnesses are going to be for the defense and who's going to testify for the defense. I mean, we would say, well, that's ridiculous. That would never be justice. Exactly. Neither is this. Right. It's a TV show. But I think it'll end up having about the same ratings as the Oscars, which means nobody will really want to watch this.
Well, we hope that's the case. That indicates to us that Americans do have some common sense. You know, adding to that whole issue of the propaganda nature of the television, the televised hearing here, is that Nancy Pelosi has apparently picked a former ABC television producer to produce the show tonight.
You've named it right, Doug. It's a show. This is not a hearing. This is not the official business of the United States government by the people's elected representatives. This is a TV show. And the reason that it's being done in prime time is because there is a desperate attempt to keep people from thinking about the fact that inflation is killing their budgets, that they're paying twice for gasoline, that our borders are being overrun, groceries are up 20%. They're not going to send their kids to summer camp because they can't afford it. And maybe that vacation to go see grandma, they'll have to do it by Skype this year because they can't afford it. Maybe they catch a ride in Senator Stabinov's electric car and she can drive them because she brags about not having to pay gas in her $70,000 electric vehicle. But most Americans don't even make that much in a year. So I think what we can expect is a whole bunch of theater and very little business of the people who will pay for this theater.
Mm-hmm. Governor, I asked in the end of that piece that I did, the setup piece of this, that the adults in the room in American politics really need to stand up right now. But I question whether there are any in politics, at least in the Democratic Party in Washington right now. And I'm citing, the reference to Schumer, who over a year ago in 2020, when the Supreme Court agreed to take up this Louisiana abortion case, that they were going to be reaping the whirlwind for that. Incendiary language for which he is now paying the price in the aftermath of this assassination attempt. But how do we calm the rhetoric down a little bit? I understand that there are some uses of language which are acceptable, that are allegorical. We're going to target this candidate, et cetera, et cetera. That's legitimate. And people need to differentiate between that sort of allegorical language and targeting somebody with a gun. But at the same time, there is really incendiary language, and people who are on the fringes listen to this kind of stuff and can act out based on it. Your thoughts?
I think that's what's frightening. This young man who came from Simi Valley, California to go and with the intent of murdering and assassinating Justice Kavanaugh, was he inspired by Chuck Schumer? He may have been. But the point is, Chuck Schumer should know better. He's a U.S. Senator. He's been one for a long time. He surely has to know that when he says things like that, and then you've got folks marching down the streets in front of the homes of Supreme Court justices, he is partly responsible. So let's just say this. Chuck Schumer may be the real insurrectionist in America when he's encouraging people to overthrow the Supreme Court and to take action against its justices. Doug, that's real insurrection. Mm-hmm. These aren't a bunch of goofballs waving flagpoles at the Capitol for 4 hours. This is a U.S. Senator who is actually encouraging very dastardly things to happen to Supreme Court justices. That's who we ought to be investigating tonight in prime time.
Hi, I'm Doug McKelway, and thank you for watching Centerpoint. We hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. Leave a comment below and keep the conversation going by sharing this video with a friend who needs to see it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.